Imagine a time long before written records, when the sky stretched endlessly above and the earth was still young. Humanity looked around, marveling at its beginnings, its place in the vast world. What if the story of our creation is more than myth, more than simple tale? What if it holds questions that have lingered for millennia? Tonight, let's softly explore the story of the Anunnaki, the ancient gods of Sumer, their mysteries, their creation myths, and the echoes of their legends across time. We'll wander through what the Sumerian tablets reveal, what remains uncertain, what some have claimed, and whether the idea that the Anunnaki created humans is myth, metaphor, or perhaps something more. Gently, let us place ourselves in ancient Mesopotamia, in the fertile land called Sumer, cradled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Around 4500 to 4000 BCE, towns began to grow. Uruk, Eridu cities of mud bricks and reeds, where priests and kings presided, where temples rose unevenly against the sky. Life here was guided by water and soil, and human civilization took its first steps: agriculture, writing, laws, and the imagining of gods. These gods, powerful and complex, were the Anunnaki. The word Anunnaki is often translated as offspring of Anu, Anu being the god of the sky, lord of the heavens. Their mother was Ki, the goddess of the earth. Born of sky and soil, these deities held sway over the seasons, the winds, the floods, and the destinies of humankind. But here is where history meets mystery. The myths are many and varied. Some suggest the Anunnaki created humans to serve them, to take over laborious work, or to care for the land. Yet the tablets themselves, fragile clay, inscribed with symbols, are not always clear, and how much later storytellers have added is uncertain. One Sumerian myth, Atrahasis, tells of lower gods, the Igigi, who labored endlessly, digging canals and shaping rivers. Their toil was harsh, their patience worn thin. Eventually, they rebelled, and the great gods faced a dilemma. One solution emerged: create a being to carry the burden humankind. Humans in this telling are born to labor, but crafted by divine hands. The myth describes clay, divine essence, craftsmanship. Some interpretations speak of replacing the Igigi with humans, but myth is rarely literal. Perhaps metaphor, perhaps imagination, yet the imagery is vivid. And beyond these tablets, some propose more extraordinary ideas. Could the Anunnaki have been ancient astronauts, extraterrestrial visitors, beings of such advanced power that early humans perceived them as gods? These speculations often arise from puzzles. Why did the Sumerians develop early astronomy and mathematics, build sophisticated temples, and preserve intricate stories of floods and creation, not just locally, but echoed across the world? Some suggest these are hints of something real. Yet mainstream historians remind us that human ingenuity, necessity, and centuries of experimentation can explain much of Sumer's brilliance. Archaeology gives us ziggurats, temples, tools, and clay tablets. The myths themselves are poetry filled with symbolism and allegory. Still, certain authors, like Zecharia Sitchin, have proposed that the Anunnaki came from a distant planet, Nibiru, that they sought gold, and that humans were genetically engineered to serve them. These ideas are controversial. Many Sumerian scholars argue that Sitchin's interpretations do not align with the language or context of the tablets. The planet Nibiru, they suggest, may be a misreading or a later addition, not part of the original text. What remains certain is that the Sumerians believed the gods shaped their world. They believed in creation stories, in divine determination, in floods and fate. Whether they imagined humans as literal creations of alien visitors is another question entirely. Pause here and let your mind drift for a moment. We are speaking of a time before history as we know it, when myth and memory intertwined. The possibility that our beginnings are entwined with the divine lingers in clay tablets, in starry skies above, in the whisper of rivers through ancient cities. The texts themselves vary across city-states and temples. Enki, god of fresh water and wisdom, often devises solutions. Enlil, god of air and storms, is stern and commanding. Ninhursag, goddess of birth and mountains, Ki, the earth itself. They sometimes cooperate, sometimes conflict. In myths like the Atrahasis or the Epic of Gilgamesh, the gods react to human noise, numbers, and deeds. Humans, small and fragile, are loved, feared, or both. Enki sometimes aids humans, granting knowledge, tools, agriculture, and language. In other tales, suffering and endurance are part of humanity's design. Creation remains central. Clay, divine essence, breath of life. Archaeologists have unearthed tablets, the Enuma Elish, Atrahasis, Enki, and the World Order that reveal glimpses of these ancient stories. Yet the extraordinary ideas of alien engineering or interstellar visitors belong to later interpretations, not confirmed by credible translations. Consider this. History is often written by the powerful priests, scribes, kings. The stories preserved may reflect authority as much as divinity. Myths of labor, reward, obedience, and suffering may mirror human societies themselves, elite and commoner, ruler and subject. Even if the Anunnaki were metaphor, the depth of thought about labor, divine power, destiny, and human purpose in these ancient minds is remarkable. And perhaps, somewhere, artifacts or tablets yet undiscovered may shift our understanding. Some claim objects show advanced knowledge or mysteries. Scholars remain cautious. Possibility, misinterpretation, imagination. Real examples exist too. The Mask of Warka from Uruk, around 3100-3000 BCE, one of the earliest depictions of the human face, shows keen observation, artistry, and intention. The Atrahasis tablets, worn and fragile, tell of labor, rebellion, and divine planning. Through these, a sense of mystery remains, an epiphany of wonder that the past continues to whisper to us. As we move deeper into the story of the Anunnaki, keep two threads in mind: history and myth, humanity and divinity, labor and creation. Let us carry these gently as we continue our journey through time. Myth and fact, they are threads of different colors in the same tapestry. Myth tells us not only what people believed, but what they wondered about, what they feared, what they loved. Fact gives us clay tablets, archaeological digs, linguists painstakingly translating Sumerian words, comparing versions across cities and eras, and one question lingers softly, like a whisper through the reeds. When myth speaks of clay and divine blood, are these simply metaphors for the materials of life? Our bodies formed from earth, our breath drawn from air, our consciousness or soul regarded as something divine, or do these words encode memories of something more literal, perhaps even technological? The answer remains unknown, suspended between imagination and evidence. Now, dear listener, let us wander among ancient ruins. Picture ziggurats rising at dusk, torches flickering along mud brick walls, priests chanting in Sumerian, clay tablets being etched with cuneiform, the smell of reeds and river in the air, the soft lapping of water under a silver moon. In that world, gods were near, the sky alive, and creation stories were not distant tales, they were lived every day. You may ask, did the Anunnaki physically shape humans? Did they come from another world? Or are these notions later interpretations, modern overlays on ancient myths? The records we hold show symbolic depth. They reveal human wonder, rituals, floods, gods who decide and care, gods who punish and gift. But in mainstream scholarship, they do not definitively claim that extraterrestrials made humans. Still, anomalies exist. Voices outside the mainstream whisper through damaged tablets, fragments hinting at possibilities. Reinterpretations arise. Some see gaps, inconsistencies, the sudden leaps in civilization, and wonder if something extraordinary lies just beyond our sight. As we reach the midpoint of our journey, I gently invite you to continue exploring, with me blending myth and history, possibility and mystery, ancient voices and human longing. Consider this a quiet companionship as we wander through forgotten histories, holding the questions that remain, sharing in wonder. Part of the beauty of these stories lies not in reaching firm conclusions, but in living with mystery, in letting curiosity breathe. Let us return now to specific narratives. In the Eridu Genesis and Atrahasis, humans are fashioned because the gods are troubled, they need relief. In Atrahasis, the lower gods rebel, saying, "Enough labor." The higher gods respond by shaping humankind to bear the burden. How exactly? Tablets suggest clay, water, divine image, sometimes blood or breath. The notion of divine essence is present, but rarely alien in nature. To the ancients, the godly breath may have simply meant the life force itself, as real and tangible as anything physical. There are variations. In some myths, humans exist to praise the gods, maintain temples, and tend offerings. In others, humanity bears toil and suffering. Flood myths depict divine regret or overwhelm in response to human noise and numbers, blending calamity, punishment, mercy, survivors, and renewal. One idea persists across tales. Humanity carries a spark of the divine, part of the gods within us. Perhaps this explains temples, rituals, and sky watching, as humans seek connection with higher powers. Modern interpretations sometimes overlay aliens onto these myths, descendants of heaven and earth, blood of gods, or the gaps in timelines become evidence. Hypothetical planets like Nibiru are suggested as Anunnaki homes, but mainstream Sumerology does not support these claims. Many original Sumerian and Akkadian texts make no mention of such planets. Translation, context, and grammar matter. Consider control of narrative. Temples, priests, kings, writing was sacred, myths preserved on clay, literacy rare, priests and scribes shaped what was recorded. Kings might claim descent from Enlil. Temples might assert divine selection. Myths serve political as well as spiritual purposes. Telling humans they were made by gods reinforced the idea that kings were chosen and labor was part of the human condition. Stories shaped morals and values, evolving through centuries. Oral tradition, copying of tablets, translation from Sumerian to Akkadian to Babylonian legends, layers added, subtracted, reinterpreted. Perhaps later storytellers introduced grander imagery or borrowed from neighboring cultures. What is truth in these stories? What does it mean that humans were created by gods? Does it matter if the gods were literal beings or whether the myths are symbolic? Maybe these creation myths reveal human longing, connection, identity, meaning perhaps they reflect our need to feel part of something larger, to gaze at the stars and wonder where we came from. Myth and history both strive to answer these questions. Time erodes certainty. Tablets crumble. Meanings shift, but the wonder persists. Perhaps the most powerful part of these Anunnaki stories is not in proving extraterrestrial existence, but in understanding how ancient people asked questions, remembered the world, and built frameworks to comprehend the human-divine boundary. Ahead, we will trace more archaeological evidence, more textual fragments, distinguishing speculation from historical consensus. Yet some mysteries may never be fully resolved. The sky keeps secrets. The clay whispers faintly. Imagine yourself in a scriptorium of old, lamplight flickering, a scribe pressing a reed stylus into damp clay. Each wedge shape holds meaning. Anu, Enlil, clay, earth. One moment, perhaps, chisels the phrase. Let us create humans, preserved across time, yet now visible only in fragments, broken tablets, missing lines, translation ambiguity. One tablet may speak of the gods troubled by labor. Another may show humans fashioned to provide offerings. Another preserves instructions for worship. But nowhere in the oldest texts do we read, aliens traveled here and inserted DNA. That framing, that language is ours, a modern overlay on ancient wonder. In mainstream scholarship, the Anunnaki are seen as gods, mythical beings beyond human comprehension, not literal aliens. The creation of humans in these readings is symbolic, theological. The power of myth lies in its meaning. It binds communities, teaches morality, gives weight to life and death. Flood stories, for example, may reflect memories of actual disasters, of rivers overflowing, of survival and hope. Yet even here, mystery lingers. Certain elements feel unusually vivid references to the sky, to stars, heavenly assemblies, gods descending, divine decrees, and gaps in the archaeological record that leave room for wonder. Could there have been something real behind these stories? Perhaps obsidian or meteorites from distant lands, shimmering lights in the night sky, comets blazing past, or astronomical knowledge older than we usually imagine. Maybe these were observed events woven into narrative over generations. Imagine one day a tablet buried for millennia is discovered, describing something unexpected, something more than metaphor, more than myth, something technological from our perspective. Could myths, in part, preserve memories of things we have yet to fully understand? Let that thought linger gently as we continue. Next, we will examine Sumerian words, what clay and breath meant in their language, what scholars interpret, and where mistranslations or misreadings have occurred. We will explore more artifacts, temples, statues, and seals, seeing clearly where evidence ends and speculation begins. By the end, you may drift into sleep holding both wonder and peace, cradling mystery lightly. The scrolls of Mesopotamia preserve multiple creation myths, each with unique details. Among the best preserved is the Epic of Atrahasis, written in Akkadian on clay tablets, portions dating roughly to the 18th century BCE. The tale describes gods who labored, who rebelled, and the solution, humanity. In Atrahasis, the lower gods, the Igigi, were tasked with digging canals and tending the land. After many years of toil, they rise in complaint. The work is too much. They call upon the higher gods, Anu, Enlil, Enki, to hear their grievances. Enki, wise among gods, proposes a compromise. Humans will be created so the lower gods can be freed from labor. With the participation of a womb goddess, sometimes called Ninhuasag or Mami, clay is mixed with the flesh or blood of a god, and the first humans are fashioned. They are given life, they bear the burden, and they serve. One detail stands out beautiful and strange, the mingling of divine material with clay. Humans inherit something faintly divine, yet scholars caution this language as symbolic, ritualistic, mythic, not instructions for DNA or machinery. Other myths echo similar themes. The Eridu Genesis captures fragments of early creation and flood legends describing humanity's formation, the establishment of kingship, and the rise of civilization. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, recounts gods in conflict, ordering the cosmos and creating humans to serve, maintain order, and honor the divine with offerings. What do scholars assert when asked if the Anunnaki created humans literally? Most academic voices separate myth from empirical evidence. They recognize the Anunnaki as mythological deities within religious tradition, examine cuneiform tablets, archaeological layers, and linguistic structure. They see mythic patterns, gods reflecting human concerns, explaining origin, suffering, and the environment. Translations of Sumerian and Akkadian texts show creation as theological, metaphorical, and ritualistic. For instance, in Atrahasis, humans are created to relieve the labor of gods, a reflection of ancient concerns about work, survival, and the challenges of irrigation and agriculture. Myths frame toil, suffering, mortality, divine favor, floods, compassion, and reconciliation. Later interpretations, turning Anunnaki into literal aliens, are not supported by mainstream scholarship. Zecharia Sitchin, perhaps the most well-known proponent, suggested the Anunnaki came from Nibiru and genetically engineered humanity. But linguists note that his readings do not align with original Sumerian or Akkadian texts. Many translations are misreadings or stretched interpretations. No credible ancient artifact confirms extraterrestrials modifying human DNA. The texts speak of gods, the divine, ritual, and myth. Words like clay, blood, and breath carry theological and cosmological meaning, yet anomalies persist. Some tablets are fragmentary, damaged, or partially lost. Versions differ. Gaps in Atrahasis, lacunae in translation, obscure words, and poetic ambiguity invite speculation. Across cultures, creation and flood myths recur: Sumer, India, China, the Americas, reflecting either cultural transmission or common human experience shaped by real catastrophes. In Sumer, floods of the Tigris and Euphrates were literal, demanding management through canals, levees, shaping consciousness over generations. Architecture, astronomy, calendars, and geometric understanding suggest sophisticated observation. Modern interpreters sometimes see hints of advanced knowledge, but scholars argue that human curiosity and practical need explain much of this achievement. Consider again the power of myth and narrative. In Mesopotamia, gods, priests, kings, temples, and ritual were deeply intertwined. Claiming descent from a god, possessing a tablet or temple, reinforced authority and legitimacy. Myths justified labor, taxes, rituals, and obedience. Kings invoked Enlil to legitimize rule. Priests recited Atrahasis to remind people of floods, divine displeasure, and the importance of offerings. Myth became living poetry, law, social control, identity. Over time, the roles of gods shifted. Anu, Enlil, Enki, Inanna, and later Marduk changed prominence across cities and eras. Temples shifted wealth. Myths adapted to political alliances, conquests, and social changes. Creation stories could be repurposed to celebrate different deities or legitimize new rulers. And through all of this, we remember these are the Anunnaki of Sumer and Akkad, the gods of Atrahasis, Eridu Genesis, Enuma Elish, and others. We are asking whether the notion that they made humans is supported by evidence or belongs to the realm of myth and possibility. Take a breath and let the ancient world settle gently in your mind. Let the names Enki, Enlil, and Anu float gently in your mind. Imagine clay, riverbanks, mud, the breath of life, and the quiet unknown. There are phrases in the Sumerian texts that scholars analyze carefully. For instance, in Atrahasis, the line describing clay plus the flesh and blood of a god is often cited by those who suggest humans were engineered. Yet the original Akkadian may have metaphorical or ritual significance. The flesh of the god might signify a portion of divine essence, personality, or life force rather than a literal physical component. Clay, across world mythologies, represents the earth, dust the matter from which life is fashioned. The Sumerian word Lu means person or man. Abzu or Abzu refers to subterranean waters. Namu sometimes refers to the mother water or womb goddess. Translators spend years analyzing context, ritual meaning, and multiple tablet copies. They attempt to restore lacunae, emphasizing that metaphor should not be read as modern alien engineering without evidence. Popular books and videos sometimes misread Sumerian, impose modern assumptions, or treat symbolic phrases as literal technology. Take the name Nibiru, for example, often cited as the Anunnaki's home. Mainstream Sumerology does not support this interpretation. Such claims usually stem from speculative translations or authors with contested qualifications. Yet mystery endures. Some tablets remain untranslated, some are fragmentary. Rituals, festivals, and temple inscriptions are lost. Human layers of civilization lie buried under centuries of sand, war, and erosion. What survives is impressive but incomplete: broken tablets, missing lines, faded inscriptions. Our understanding of early Sumerian language and cults is partial. Where myth meets these gaps, imagination fills in. Less well-preserved city-states or peripheral temples may hold variant myths, different creation stories, alternate gods. Perhaps somewhere a tablet exists, describing gods coming from the stars more literally, but so far, mainstream archaeology has found nothing confirming the ancient astronaut hypothesis. The weight of evidence rests on myth, metaphor, cultural memory, and philosophical reflection. Myths are not wrong because they lack empirical fact. They are profound because they reflect human longing for origins, meaning, and connection to something vast. By imagining gods who create, punish, rescue, or flood, humans seek comfort, guidance, and identity. Perhaps the most ancient stories address vulnerability, mortality, the cosmos, and time itself. In thinking of the Anunnaki, we are really reflecting on what it means to be human creatures who wonder about our beginnings, who toil, who hope, who fear, who love, build, remember, write, and sing. Now gently returning to the question, did the Anunnaki create humans? The mythic texts do describe creation stories, in which the Anunnaki or related deities shape humanity from clay and divine essence, assigning roles and responsibilities. These myths are ancient, stretching back thousands of years, yet the texts offer no evidence in mainstream study that these gods were extraterrestrials with spacecraft or genetic engineering in any modern sense. Such readings are speculative. The ancient symbols, metaphors, ritual language, and fragmentary passages leave room for imagination, but gaps are not proof. The myths also serve religious, social, and political purposes, grouping humanity under gods, justifying authority, structuring society, explaining suffering. Across cultures, humans imagine beings from the sky, divine creation, and cosmic intervention, likely inspired by natural phenomena. Meteors, comets, floods, celestial events, and dramatic earthly occurrences. Perhaps myths encode memory, using allegory to explain experiences long forgotten. Could there be a middle ground, neither alien engineering nor purely invented fairy tale? Myth is memory. Myth is encoded understanding of origins, inspired by events or objects now lost to time. Could some stories have grown in the telling, small wonders amplified into grand gods? Recent scholarship reminds us that our understanding of Mesopotamian myth is never complete. Small finds shift perspectives, revealing nuances previously unseen. For the Anunnaki, these are subtle additions, myth fragments, reinterpretations, renewed readings of tablets, and art speaking in quiet symbols. A study published early in 2025, Who Were the Anunnaki Really?, in Ancient Origins, emphasized that the Anunnaki are Sumerian deities, children of the sky god Anu, associated with fate, judgment, creation, the underworld, and the heavens. Even scholars who seek to deize the Anunnaki recognize the enduring power of these myths. They reveal how ancient people tried to understand life and human limits. A curious recent artifact, though not universally accepted, is a tablet from Nippur labeled NI-12501. Deciphered in fragments, it tells of the storm god Ishkur, trapped in Kur, the underworld, and a fox who bravely ventures to rescue him. While not directly about human creation, it enriches our understanding of how Sumerians imagined gods, intervention, and the boundaries between divine and mortal worlds. Let the stories of gods, humans, and clay drift gently in your mind. Even the myths reveal vulnerability. Gods subject to fate, capable of being imprisoned, reliant on helpers, sometimes aided by symbolic animals. These discoveries remind us that myth is never static. The Sumerian pantheon has many voices, some muted or lost, and each newly read tablet can subtly shift our understanding, not pointing to alien engineers, but illuminating human imagination, culture, and meaning. Turning now to linguistic detail, consider how words in Sumerian or Akkadian shape interpretation. The term Anuna or Anunnaki appears across several layers of myth. Scholars translate it variously. Offspring of Anu, princely seed, those of royal blood. The root Anu means sky or heavens. Un is a possessive. Aki possibly refers to earth, but affixes remain debated. The word carries weight, divine, royal, ancient. Rarely does it mean extraterrestrial as modern readers might imagine. It more commonly designates high gods who allocate fates. Then there is Igigi, the younger gods or divine laborers in the Atrahasis myth, tasked with toil until they rebel. Unlike the Anunnaki, these divine workers serve more practical functions. Some modern interpretations conflate Igigi with the Anunnaki, imagining them as subordinate aliens, but the texts themselves keep their roles distinct. Other terms complicate interpretation. Words like Kur, Kural, Ra describe mountains, lands, or the underworld, the domains of gods and the dead. A god in Kur may be in the land of the dead, a poetic rather than literal subterranean location. Such layered language cautions against reading myth as direct geography or alien topography. Scholars note translations can collapse metaphor into literalness too quickly. Now, let us gently explore anomalies. Early Sumerians were remarkably attentive to astronomy. They charted stars, planets, and comets, tracked celestial motions and eclipses, aligned temples and ziggurats with the heavens. The sky was part of religious life. Some modern interpreters suggest myths about gods in the sky may reference observational astronomy, perhaps even early cosmology. Did Sumerians imagine these celestial beings as gods from the sky? Likely yes, but not as literal extraterrestrials. Flood myths are another point of fascination. Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian texts, Atrahasis, Gilgamesh, Eridu Genesis, repeat the theme of catastrophic flooding. These stories may encode environmental memory, rivers rising, destructive floods, or sea level changes after ice ages. Unpredictable natural disasters could have been perceived as divine wrath or as gods reacting. Yet myths frame floods in moral and ritualistic terms, not in modern alien engineering terms. Fragmentary tablets offer another layer of mystery. Many edges are worn, lines missing, entire myths partially lost. Some are reconstructed from later copies or translations. Popular claims about original content can be uncertain. A fragment suggesting literal divine descent or tools may have vanished. We do not know. Now consider modern reinterpretations versus mainstream scholarship. In The 12th Planet and subsequent volumes, Zecharia Sitchin suggested the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings from Nibiru, mining gold and genetically engineering humans as servants. These ideas have captured popular imagination, fueling ancient astronaut theories, yet scholars critique Sitchin heavily. Many of his translations are inconsistent with Sumerian or Akkadian grammar. He imposes meanings not present in texts. His chronology does not match archaeological consensus, and his interpretations of words like Nibiru are disputed. Mainstream Sumerologists often find these terms absent or used differently. Nonetheless, Sitchin's work remains influential, especially in popular culture, fringe theories, and alternative history circles. Here, myth informs myth. The allure, the mystery, the wonder persist. The narrative resonates because humans are drawn to stories that reach beyond firm evidence. Power, control, and narrative shaped the Anunnaki myth in ancient times and continue to shape its modern reception. Kings claimed divine favor, temples controlled ritual, priesthoods preserved myths, scribes copied tablets, and myths became living instruments of social order, morality, and identity. Myths legitimize authority. They are blueprints for order. In the ancient world, gods created kings to rule, and kings ruled because gods willed it so. Every creation story carried purpose to explain labor, suffering, and devotion, to weave meaning into human existence. In modern times, new myths arise in different forms. The narratives of authors like Zecharia Sitchin or others who follow his path serve fresh powers, commercial empires of books, documentaries, and entertainment. There is always power in mystery. Speculative readings often travel further than quiet academic caution. They move through the internet, through culture, through conversation, shaping what people believe. The myth of the Anunnaki as alien creators has, in many circles, overshadowed the myth of the Anunnaki as gods of sky and earth, of judgment and fate. That is the power of story in our time, how imagination becomes belief. And what does all of this suggest? Perhaps that our desire to believe in something larger than ourselves is older than any text or tablet. The longing for cosmic origin, for divine ancestry, is as ancient as language itself. Myth, symbolism, ritual, the awe of the heavens, all were attempts to make sense of chaos, to stand beneath the night sky and feel connection. Humans have always searched for pattern, for belonging, for meaning that extends beyond the horizon. Perhaps myths are not wrong, not false, only different kinds of truth. They are emotional truths, existential truths, reflections of fear, hope, and wonder. They speak of mortality and survival. They speak of the awe that comes from creation, the trembling before mystery. And in this, perhaps we can hold both myth and fact, faith and uncertainty, side by side without conflict, to accept that we do not need all answers to feel the wonder of the question. Imagine for a moment that an untranslated tablet still lies buried in the dust, broken but waiting. Perhaps upon its surface are faint lines, telling of gods descending in beams of light, of shining chariots rising toward the heavens. Would that change everything? Perhaps, or perhaps not, because interpretation always carries assumptions. Discovery never arrives without context. What if one day the combination of modern science, ancient DNA, fossil memory, the alignment of stars reshapes the way we read these myths, not as literal accounts of visitation, but as echoes of long-forgotten experiences, natural phenomena once felt as divine. As night deepens and your eyes grow heavy, we circle back again to the question, did the Anunnaki create humans? Here's what we can say, softly. Yes. In the oldest Sumerian and Akkadian texts, the gods, the Anunnaki, and their kin are said to have fashioned humankind. They did so to ease divine labor, to maintain offerings, to praise and to serve, to stand as intermediaries between heaven and earth. Humanity was given purpose and in return offered devotion. But the idea that these Anunnaki were literal extraterrestrials, using advanced technology or genetic tools that belongs to modern imagination, it is a hypothesis built from fragments, not from verified texts or mainstream archaeological evidence. The border between myth and interpretation is thin. Imagery, symbols, and ritual language can be read too literally. Scholars often caution against viewing these stories through modern lenses of science fiction. Yet myth persists. Tablettes endure. The clay still speaks. The human impulse to ask where did we come from remains as powerful as ever. Now that the final reflections arrive like slow breaths before sleep, the most satisfying answer may not be factual but poetic. Whether or not the Anunnaki created humans as imagined by popular writers, the story itself is a creation of humanity's need for wonder, for connection, for the mystery of beginnings. In retelling these tales, people have shaped their own understanding of sky and soil, of life and death, of purpose and belonging. Perhaps the question is not, did they? But what does it mean that we believe they might have? Meaning lies not in certainty, but in the act of imagining, in holding on to awe. So as you drift, hold this softly. The tablets may whisper, the stars still shine. The sky remains vast and unending. We may never know everything, but in not knowing, perhaps there is peace. If these thoughts stir something within you, curiosity, stillness, wonder, join the journey. Subscribe, and together we'll travel further through forgotten histories, more myths, more mysteries. In the ancient city of Nippur, around 4,400 years ago, a tablet was inscribed, now known as NI 12501. Its surface is cracked, its edges broken, but enough remains to tell a story long forgotten. The tale of the storm god Ishkur trapped in Kur, the netherworld, and the clever fox who dares to cross boundaries where even gods hesitate. The fragments show glimpses only. Ishkur, the god of rain, is gone. Rivers dry, crops fail, humanity suffers. The gods convene, uncertain who will act. Then the fox, small yet brave, volunteers. It carries bread and water not for eating, but as keys to passage into Kur. The story breaks before its end. Does Ishkur escape? Do the rains return? We do not know. In that silence lies beauty, the unfinished echo of an ancient imagination. The myth reminds us that the Anunnaki and the gods of Sumer were not omnipotent beings of science fiction, but divine archetypes capable of fear, courage, failure, and renewal. Humanity too was woven into their fates. Recent scholarship continues to refine what we know. Studies such as Who Were the Anunnaki Really? Ancient Origins, 2025, reveal that their roles evolved over centuries. In early texts, the Anunnaki preside over creation, order, and the division of labor. Later, in tablets from Nippur and beyond, they become judges of the underworld, guardians of fate beside the queen of the dead. This transformation is telling. It shows that myth itself is alive, reshaped by time, by rulers, by shifting faith. The Anunnaki were never static. Their stories expanded as humanity did. They created, they judged, they mediated between chaos and order. Humanity, always watching, always wondering, shaped these stories in return. The word Anunnaki itself comes from ancient roots. Anu, the sky. An, a possessive. Aki, connected to the earth. It means offspring of Anu, or those of royal blood. Divine, regal, ancient. Nowhere does it mean extraterrestrial. The Anunnaki were gods of destiny, keepers of fate. Their younger counterparts, the Igigi, toiled endlessly digging canals, maintaining the world until their rebellion gave rise to humankind. Enki, wise and compassionate, mixed clay with divine essence, breathing life into a new species. Humans would carry the labor of gods, bridging heaven and earth. Some interpret this as a story of alien engineering. But within the language of myth, it is moral reflection, ritual memory, symbolic creation. Even so, the tablets are fragmentary lines lost, meanings blurred. Scholars rebuild from shards, balancing between caution and curiosity. And so, even as we dream of gods and stars, we return to where the Sumerians began: clay, breath, water, and wonder. The NI 12501 tablet leaves the fox's mission unresolved. We do not know if Ishkur was freed, or if rain returned to the parched fields. Could missing lines have described divine instruments, radiant light, or interventions that might inspire modern imaginations of alien craft? Perhaps, yet nothing is confirmed. This is the whisper of the unknown, the soft edge of curiosity, a place where history, myth, and imagination meet. Another anomaly emerges when we consider Sumerian astronomy. Temples and ziggurats were carefully aligned with celestial bodies, stars, planets, comets. Records show meticulous observations, calculations, and tracking of planetary cycles. Some modern observers suggest this implies knowledge beyond their time, hinting at the possibility of celestial visitors. Scholars, however, remind us it is the product of careful observation, applied mathematics, and human ingenuity. Still, to modernize, the precise alignments add layers of wonder. Could gods have descended from the stars, or were the stars simply symbolic, a mapping of divine hierarchy across the night sky? Both possibilities linger unanswered in the quiet night. Let us pause again and revisit the flood myths. Atrahasis, Gilgamesh, Eridu Genesis, and Genesis itself recount deluges triggered by divine displeasure. The Tigris and Euphrates often overflowed, reshaping landscapes and settlements. Ancient peoples encoded these events into myth, giving them moral and cosmic significance. The flood was more than water. It was story, lesson, warning, memory woven into ritual. Some modern theories suggest these floods might hint at extraterrestrial intervention. Scholars, though, point out that natural disasters, observed patterns, ritual, and narrative sufficiently explain these myths. Yet the allure of the unknown persists, pulling imagination toward the stars. Myths, in their elegance, mirror human concerns: fear, hope, awe, mortality. The Anunnaki appear as creators, judges, participants in cosmic order, sometimes faltering, sometimes heroic, sometimes enigmatic. Their stories encode lessons of labor, morality, responsibility, and the fragile balance of nature. They remind us of human vulnerability, of curiosity reaching toward the infinite. Imagine, in a newly excavated city, a tablet emerging tomorrow. Its worn lines hint at gods descending in radiant light, or mysterious tools of creation. How would we interpret it? Would it confirm alien theories, or deepen the symbolic mystery, the dance between metaphor, ritual, and imagination? The ambiguity itself is part of the allure, part of the dream that drifts through the mind at night. Humans have always sought to bridge gaps between knowledge and fear. Through myth, ritual, and observation, we attempt to touch the infinite. The Anunnaki myths are not failures of understanding. They are triumphs of curiosity, embedded in clay, echoing across millennia. As the night air cools, pause with the whisper of history. The Anunnaki may have created humans in story, judged them, guided them, or vanished entirely. Their voices echo in clay, temple walls, and starlit alignments. Within those echoes, we find not only history, but wonder, reflection, and the gentle comfort of mystery. If these stories stir your imagination, subscribe, and together we may explore more forgotten histories, lost myths, and mysteries whispering from the sands of time. Even as the Sumerians inscribed tablets, other civilizations echoed similar themes. In Akkad, later texts preserve the same gods under slightly altered names. Anu remains the sky deity, Enlil the air, Enki water and wisdom. Mythological structure persists, gods in hierarchy, humans created to serve, floods sweeping civilizations as both punishment and renewal. Continuity is remarkable across cultures. Creation, labor, divine intervention, the rhythm repeats. These are not precise copies, but resonances of shared human concern, survival, and curiosity about forces beyond control. In Babylon, around 1800 BCE, the Epic of Gilgamesh preserves fragments of these stories in poetic form. Gilgamesh, half divine, half human, navigates a world shaped by gods who reward, punish, and vanish. The epic includes a flood narrative nearly identical to Atrahasis, suggesting both memory of environmental catastrophe and fascination with divine authority. Did the Anunnaki inspire Gilgamesh? Possibly, mythically. Did they genetically engineer humans? The tablets do not claim this. Across time and space, other civilizations present strikingly similar creation myths. In Egypt, gods mold humans from clay. In India, hymns of the Rig Veda describe deities shaping the cosmos, dividing waters, and assigning human roles. The similarities are symbolic, reflecting shared human questions. Why are we here? Who governs fate? Modern curiosity may read these as evidence of alien influence, but they may also simply reveal universal human wonder. Back in Sumer, anomalies remain. Some tablets are incomplete, edges worn, sometimes only half a line survives. He descended from the, and then nothing. Did this describe a tool, a vehicle, or celestial craft? Or a beam of sunlight, a ritual, divine inspiration? The uncertainty fosters both scholarship and imagination. Nai 12501 leaves Ishkur and the fox's story unfinished. Did the fox succeed? Did rain return? The fragments invite speculation, but never certainty. Observing the stars, the Sumerians mapped Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Alignments of ziggurats with celestial events suggest intentional observation. Some modern enthusiasts interpret this as cosmic engineering or alien contact. Scholars caution us. Humans have always looked up, charted cycles, sought patterns. Perhaps the gods from the sky were metaphors for understanding the universe, not literal visitors. Yet the symbolism persists. Why are we drawn to the idea of alien intervention? Because the myths themselves are elegant, ambiguous, and compelling. The Anunnaki are powerful yet fallible, distant yet intimately involved. We project our questions onto their stories, the desire for observable intervention, technology, or agency. It is an ancient impulse to grasp origins, to connect with forces beyond ourselves. Softly revisit the central question: did the Anunnaki create humans? In myth, yes. Humans were made to relieve divine labor, maintain cosmic balance, worship, and mediate between gods and the natural world. Linguistic and historical evidence confirms the Anunnaki were deities, not extraterrestrial engineers. Their creation is symbolic, metaphorical, ritualized. Fragmentary texts, like NI 12501, show divine action as incomplete, open to interpretation. Mystery thrives in these gaps. Over centuries, the Anunnaki evolved from creators to judges, weighing souls, decreeing fates, intervening in human affairs. Their myths reflect shifting societies, moral frameworks, and governance structures. Light descending from the heavens, tools shining, divine breath. Modern readers may imagine spacecraft. Ancient ones envisioned sacred light, ritual implements, or inspiration. Both interpretations coexist quietly in our curiosity. Philosophical reflection. Myths are bridges between memory and imagination. They carry humanity's deepest questions. Who are we? Why are we here? How do we relate to the cosmos? Whether gods are literal or symbolic, these stories endure because they answer timeless needs. They comfort, inspire, and whisper in the night, inviting wonder and contemplation. What if tomorrow a new fragment appears, half a tablet lost for millennia, hinting at unknown rituals of creation? Could it reveal technology or deepen symbolic mystery? We cannot know. And perhaps that is the point. The space between certainty and imagination gives myths their life, their resonance across human thought. Drift among rivers, stars, and clay, and consider. Humans shaped by divine hands or divine imagination. The stories of the Anunnaki are as much about human curiosity as about gods. Our longing to understand beginnings, to assign meaning, to connect to something greater persists. Across Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon, the myths endure, sometimes as creators, sometimes as judges, sometimes mischievous, sometimes heroic. They are not rigid. They evolve with the societies that remember them. Humans interpret, imagine, project, sometimes religiously, sometimes philosophically, sometimes speculatively. The interplay of myth and interpretation is ancient. Return once more to NI 12501. Ishkur and the fox remain unresolved, yet the fragment teaches the divine is not always complete, predictable, or fully understood. Humans live in that same space, partial knowledge, fragmentary texts, gaps that invite wonder. In dreams, perhaps we complete these stories. In curiosity, we probe their possibilities. The fragments remind us that the world is larger than what is known, that uncertainty itself is fertile ground. Modern interpretations, from Zecharia Sitchin to contemporary ancient astronaut theories, extend these myths into realms the Sumerians may not have imagined. Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial engineers. that humans were bioengineered for labor, and that gold mining shaped early civilization. These ideas captivate the imagination, stories woven with intrigue, cosmic scope, and the allure of the extraordinary. Yet careful study reminds us that mainstream archaeology, philology, and uniform scholarship do not support these claims as literal fact. Translations, timelines, and linguistic readings often diverge from Sitchin's interpretations. Still, the popularity of these ideas reflects a timeless human impulse, the desire to find the extraordinary within the ordinary, to fill gaps of mystery with possibility. The line between fact, myth, and speculation is porous. The Sumerians themselves blurred metaphor and reality, gods and humans, sky and earth. Their myths were tools for understanding, for meditation on life's uncertainties, for expressing awe at forces beyond control. They encoded moral lessons, social order, and cosmic rhythm. Millennia later, humans continued this tradition, translating fragments, imagining the gaps, finding meaning in mystery. Consider shared patterns across civilizations. Egypt, India, and Mesoamerica all recount gods shaping humans, commanding labor, mediating cosmic forces. Are these echoes of shared experience, environmental observation, or archetypal imagination? Perhaps each culture interpreted creation, morality, and fate in ways resonant with their environment and understanding of the cosmos. Across cultures, myth mirrors human awe, curiosity, and existential longing. Soft anomalies continue to invite reflection. Tablets describing descending light, divine tools, or breath-giving life could be metaphor, ritual, or observation encoded in story. Their fragmentary state preserves ambiguity, and it is in ambiguity, in the spaces between lines, that imagination thrives. We do not need certainty to find meaning. The myth itself, evolving over millennia, suffices. Return once more to the core question: did the Anunnaki create humans? Mythologically, yes. Humans were shaped, molded, or breathed into life by divine hands. This act addresses cosmic order, labor, worship, and balance. Historically, the Anunnaki are gods in Sumerian imagination, not extraterrestrial visitors. Their creation is symbolic and ritualistic. Fragmentary tablets and metaphorical readings allow room for wonder, possibility, and personal interpretation. The mystery persists, inviting contemplation rather than imposing certainty. This balance between myth, history, and speculation is precisely what makes the Anunnaki narratives enduring, enchanting, and sleep-friendly. Soft philosophical reflection. Humans are creators too. We craft meaning, stories, and interpretations from fragments, from observation, from wonder. The Anunnaki myths mirror our desire to understand origin, destiny, and forces beyond comprehension. In quiet night, contemplating clay tablets, starlit skies, and fragmentary myths, we recognize a timeless thread: the human impulse to narrate the unknown, to meditate on beginnings, to wonder about what is beyond reach. What stories lie yet undiscovered in the ruins of Uruk, Ur, Eridu, or Nippur?